It's going to be a walk and talk today. This is my route. Either way, you could say it. So, just got up this morning, went for probably a 10 to 15 minute swim. I don't swim very long. It's more about getting in there and warming up, moving around, something different. So that's a new routine that I'm starting to do is pop up, first thing, go down, swim, come, get up, then shower, get ready, and then I typically usually do a quick walk. And when I say quick, it's probably 15-minute walk one way to get a cup of coffee, hang out there for a bit, and then I head back. And it kind of depends on what the day is. If I have work, then I'll do that. If not, I might be meeting up with people or have errands, whatever, throughout the day. So yesterday, I was going to start to talk, and I never got to it. I was going to talk today a little bit about habit. That is the first week. I discuss it the first week of Binge of the Body Whisperers 8-week reboot, and talk about how dropping a couple of bad habits in that first week, maybe one, depending on where you're at, and then it's a slow progression, continually dropping bad habits as the weeks go on, so that you free up room, in a sense. It could be time that you're freeing up if you drop a bad habit of maybe that after work you go out and have a meal and drinks, there is no problem with that. But if you start doing it every night and you're gaining weight and you're not wanting to gain weight, then that's it's a negative. It's negatively impacting what your goals are. And maybe you haven't written them down as a goal, but I'm sure you want to maintain a healthy heart, healthy lungs, healthy body, all those things. As we do as humans, it's in our nature to want to live. So talking about habit. And I continue on throughout the 8-week reboot to talk about habit, because the whole 8-week reboot it's a habit reboot in a way. And I realize that that's one of the things that over the years, I develop habits quickly. I think it's been out of necessity, just because and it might just be personality. For me, it might be that I have a propensity to it. It's not to say that other people can't do it. Maybe I've had that, but then also, I think as a kid, I remember, and I didn't really realize this until now I'm reading this book about habits and how habits are formed. And there's a cue, a pattern, or a routine, and then you get the reward, whatever that is, right? So if the reward is, let's say the cue is when you get done with work, you've created a cue. The cue could be, hey, somebody says, hey, you want to go out for drinks? The cue could be that. The habit is, okay, we're going to go to, some specific bar and hang out as a group. And then the reward is the food or the drink, the company, all of that. Now, with that specific habit loop, as this guy calls it, he calls it a habit loop. With that one, now you've created a habit that over time is probably going to be of negative detriment, right? Now, if you create a habit of, same as, smoking cigarettes, whatever, but on the flip side, you can have the same thing happen for creating a workout habit. It's like as soon as work is done, you the cue is work is done. And then it's not a choice, it's a habit. You have your running shoes there, you change at work, you go out for a jog before, so that's the routine. And the reward is, you could give yourself a reward, like, okay, well then if I do that, then I get to have, this one treat. Or actually, probably after a while, just doing the run, you're gonna get the runner's high. You're gonna feel better. And if you can think in those terms, and that's something I talk about, is if you can think in terms of like positive reinforcement or positive outcomes from doing a habit. Like when I was a kid, I noticed that if I drank sugary drinks like soda, I broke out, right? So that was to me, that was, no kid wants to, to break out, and you're you're already in this rush of hormones and whatnot at that age. And so I saw the if I drank a soda, that would happen. So to me, not drinking the soda, the new habit, so thinking of the soda, think, oh, okay, well that makes this happen. I don't like that, but I do enjoy the fact that, like, if I don't break out as much, right? So then almost creating and maybe this is the way I work. I think maybe it's the scientific part of me. It's like I can linear interpolate and think like, if I do these things, now I know that this bad feeling could come. Or if I do these other things, I avoid the bad feeling. I'm not necessarily getting a short term like, it's not the same, because eating the chocolate or eating drinking or eating the fatty food gives you definitely that short term. The sugary food gives you that short term. That gives you, it's a dopamine hit, right? But if you can think past that and think, I feel better when I do this. Yes, it's going to be awesome in the now to have that thing, but in the long run, it's going to be better, and I'm going to feel happier. I'm going to feel overall, I'm not going to get that high, but I'm going to feel more consistent if I don't do it. Does that make sense? That's a little bit harder to wrap your head around, but if you can wrap your head around that, if you can see that avoiding a negative is a positive. It's not necessarily a positive maybe in the moment. It might feel like, dang, everybody around me is, like, I don't eat dairy and wheat. But the reason I think it was when it clicked for me is when I could feel the difference, that I felt so much better by not doing it, that it wasn't even a question for me. It was almost like a switch turned on and it said, no, I mean, yes, I would love to have that thing in the now, like that piece of pizza would be so awesome. But I also know how I can remember now how that feels, because I feel good now since I cut it out. I remember now how that feels, right? So I wouldn't, so then it wasn't even like, that habit was formed pretty quickly because I could so feel the difference in my body, which was pretty cool. So if you can find ways to kind of think on that, think about places where, yes, having the short-term thing, but how can you create a long-term look and really like grasp a long-term negative, like but the funny thing is it is difficult because we know so much about cigarette smoking, right? And how detrimental it is. And I know all about this stuff, and I've smoked. And I've had to say, look at it and go like, what the heck am I doing? Because in the short term, yeah, it's fun. And it hits the dopamine sensors in your brain, and nicotine is great. But then we know the long term, the studies show how detrimental it is to the human body, but a lot of times we can't think that way, right? We can't think it's just this short-term window. But if you can somehow wrap your head around the long term and then derive a short-term, like almost feeling of accomplishment from that on the daily, that then you be able to get those habits into your body. But then the other side of it is observing, right? Is observing the cues that trigger that. So what could trigger you to want to smoke? What could trigger you to want to smoke? Or what could trigger you to want to eat fatty foods? Or what could trigger you to want to eat sugary foods? Or what could trigger you to... That's the other side of it, is that when you find those things... So I've just walked... You've just been it's an 11 minute walk. That's my little walk right now. It gets me kind of warm. So I try and walk kind of briskly. So I'll talk about that probably tomorrow as cues. We talked about kind of what positive, kind of breaking down what habits are, and that breaking in that 3-prong approach of like looking at what is the cue, what is the routine, and then what is the reward. And you can start to identify those, you can start to change them. So take care, Binge of the Body Whisperer, keep moving, people. Have a good one.